Hi, folks. All right, we're gonna spend a few minutes just waiting for people to log on. I hope you can all hear me. And then we will go. Hi, Danish. All right, we are looking for we're expecting an on-time departure. I think we should just give it a minute or two to just make sure a few more people sign in, and then we can go. Let's see. Anyway, let's make sure that we are on schedule with this. Gaurav, our guest tonight, is an incredible musician. He's a great guy, and we're really lucky to have him here today. I think it's really nice to be able to have conversations with people, who have really interesting journeys into the world of professional music and musicianship. And perhaps don't always know that they're going to be professional musicians. And I think one of the reasons why I respect Gaurav so much is that he's really worked at not only his own craft but also trying to understand what being a musician means. And I hope we can answer some of these questions today. So Gaurav, if you can sign in or send me a request, I'm going to bring you in. Let's see. Where is he? Where is he? He's going to join in a minute. He's here somewhere. All right. View request. Here we go. Go live. That's more like it.
Hello.
Himself.
What's up, man? Good to see you.
I think you've got your harmonizer pedal on.
Oh, do I? No, I don't. What's my bass on?
You have something on, that's for sure.
Yeah. Always have
case
something
in point,
on.
guys, he spent the afternoon trying to figure out how to actually get an audio card and an interface working with Instagram. That's pretty cool.
Great success.
Yes, and it works. So, Gaurav, are you in Delhi or Bombay at the moment?
I'm on the outskirts of Delhi in what I like to call the greatest of all Noidas.
All right. Okay.
There
Very cool.
are two Noidas, and
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so
Hence.
let's talk a little bit about one of the things we were trying to do with these conversations is try and take stock of where we are and how we've got here, right? I mean, that's really important because there are many of us, especially students at the academy, who, like I said, don't always start out their sort of formative years knowing that they're going to be musicians. And
Yeah,
like
for sure.
you and I both had very, very different paths in our lives and other careers and other things that we loved very much, which took a primary function in our lives, right? Until
For sure.
we decided that music this is it. And it can be circumstance, it can be choice, it can be many, many other things. But here we are, right? And I think you've been doing an incredible job over the last year, putting out this incredible music. I mean, it's not just covers, it's your original stuff, and the difference is that it's not just production quality. I think that's great. I think that you put a lot of heart and soul into your music. One of the things that's really resonated with me, and I think for the viewers out there who are watching and will watch this, you should check out Groovy Butter, because that's his Instagram ID or handle. But we're talking about things that matter as musicians. How do we stay sane? How do we look at our own self-worth and our own value? And I think you've explored some of these themes through music. How do you not peg yourself to the next video as a guitar player on Instagram, right? Because there's so much other stuff out there.
Man.
So I think these are really cool and meaningful ways of expressing the things that you're going through. But let's go back a few steps. Let's talk about your childhood and the stuff that you listened to growing up, what was it that motivated you and pushed you towards music and being a performer?
For sure, man. Well, first off, thank you so much for your kind words, dude. It means so much to hear that from a musician who's so talented and so accomplished as yourself. And it really means a lot to hear that this stuff that I've been trying to put out of late has resonated in such a deep way, because so much of it has been stuff I'm trying to say to myself. Like it's actually thoughts from my own journal that I'm like, okay, let's try to, this is an important lesson. Let me see how I can make it embedded deeper into my own mind. Maybe I can make music out of it, and that'll have an impact, and maybe it'll be something worth sharing as well. So it's so lovely to hear that, man. But yeah, back to music that I've been listening to. So I grew up moving around a lot as a kid. My father was in the Indian Foreign Service, and we just jumped from country to country every 3 years. So it was a very confused childhood, with no real scope for any sort of consistent identity. And I think that's where music played a huge role. And also music was very serendipitous, right? In the way it was discovered. It was just, what you happened to chance across in Moscow versus Bangkok versus Geneva versus Dhaka. These are sort of some of the places I lived.
But I mean, you must, as a kid, how did you actually come across this music? Let me give you an example. I was talking to Girja the other day, and we were talking about the idea that we had mixtapes. You'd go to the local market and you'd have those plastic covered tapes, and the guy across the counter would give you what was the latest, stuff on tape. How did you get access to all this?
It was completely random, and it depending on which country, which context. Like I remember when we were in Moscow, and in fact, one of the people in the audience, Mehnaz, there was with us in Moscow. There was this massive open air market, which was called the CD Rinak, which basically means a CD market. And there was, to give you context, there was also a Patichi Rinak, which is an animal market, which is an open air market full of animals. And then there's the other open air market full of just pirated CDs by the sack full. And you just sort of go through, it's like a sabzi mandi over here, except it was a CD mandi. And you'd go from stall to stall and you'd like search through, maybe this, and really just throw CDs in your bag and hope and see what would come out the other end. You'd see some artist on MTV and you'd be like, sure, why not listen to this album, So that was one context. A few years later, it was, actually my original exposure to music, the very first one was rummaging around in the back of my dad's cupboard for some reason, because I discovered we had a radio that you could play cassettes on. And I found 2 cassette tapes. One was Bryan Adams' 18 Till I Die. Okay. And the second was the best of the golden oldies, a 2-tape collection, which is cheesy old songs. Oh, so heartwarming. And to this day, right, just the sound of one.
Spotify, man. I mean, the golden oldies. I said the golden oldies and the 90s. All of those were so well curated. Those were the original Spotify.
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly. And and then when you have only those 2 sources of music to listen to, I had those 2 tapes, right? I just bled them dry like over and over and over for months. So those songs are like embedded so deep, But yeah, so those are some of the ways. And years later, of course, peer-to-peer was it was like hunting for music, like the modern day version of on Kazaa or Napster. Like I remember when I first got a whiff of jazz from somewhere. In fact, I think jazz first came to me through Disney movies, through The Jungle Book. Through The Jungle Book and The Little Mermaid. They had so much of a jazz influence. And to this day, I sing those songs, man. And I know that's where I first heard the monkey scatting, right? The monkey and Baloo were scatting. And that's where it sort of got into my brain. And years later, when one had access to peer-to-peer music, that was the thing, just trawling the internet for that sound. Yeah, so it's been a lot of different ways.
And of course, you had your formative years in the US, where, tell us about Yale and tell us about what happened there. That's very exciting. For those of you who don't know, Gaurav was part of one of the most incredible a cappella groups called the whiffinpuffs. And
great name, by the way.
Yeah, it is. And there's a tradition in the US amongst the Ivy League schools of having these incredibly well trained but also incredible performers who take this product of a cappella across the world. And I mean, those of us who have lived in Calcutta, Bombay, Delhi have seen one of these a cappella groups at some point in our lives at somewhere, right? I mean, it's incredible. I got to see one, I think the Cornell or the Harvard a cappella groups once when I was in Yale, and it does. I
Nice.
mean, it was incredible, right? Because you've never seen vocal instruments like that, or at least when you're a kid. So I thought that was outstanding.
Absolutely.
Anyway, my point was let's chronicle that journey.
For sure, man. In fact, and I had a very similar experience. I was in high school in Bangkok at the time, and my dad dragged me to some performance. It was like some choir singing at this hotel, and you have to come. And I, went against my better judgment. And it was the Yale whiffinpuffs, these guys in, white tie and tails and white gloves, all singing like jazz a cappella. And it blew my 14-year-old mind away completely. I was obsessed. I was in love. I bought the CD, and I was just singing those songs over and over. It was amazing. It was amazing to hear that. I don't think harmony was a concept I was introduced to until much later in life. It was only in 11th grade that I moved to Bangkok. There was an American school there. They had a choir where 4-part harmony, etc. was a thing. Otherwise, music was mostly like a solo endeavor, So hearing harmony at this level, with this complexity and this sort of accuracy and musicality was amazing. So I was obsessed. I applied to Yale for this reason. This is what actually moved me to apply to Yale. And I wrote about it in my essay. And when I got my acceptance letter, there was actually a post-it attached to it. It was like, oh, the whiffs are waiting for you. Some admissions officer was just, trying his luck. He had no way of knowing if I would make it or not. But because the whiffs, for people who don't know, are a 14-member all-male, no longer all-male, by the way. As of the last 2 years, now females are allowed in the whiffs, which is great. And a subject of great controversy, but also great. And it was a 14-member choir that you can only get into in your final year, in your senior year. And you audition. So everybody who wants to from the junior class, which is the third year's audition. So I was in a cappella groups, one a cappella group called the Dukesmen of Yale for the first 3 years, which was also amazing.
Well, yeah, but you weren't,
experience.
I mean, your major wasn't waiting for whiff and poof acceptance, right? It was something else.
Yeah. I majored initially in electrical engineering, then switched to computer science and economics.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's incredible. I mean, you must have done that with the idea of loving the academic part of that world as well, too. I mean, you must have made that conscious.
Oh, for sure.
Because, I mean, computer science and physics, all of these are you don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to study that. It's a pretty serious major.
It was fun. I loved it. I loved building things, making things, understanding things, But also at the same time, the beauty of the American college system is you can take courses outside of your main area of interest. So I took music theory classes. I was in musical theater, both in high school and in college. In fact, there was a performance of Moulin Rouge that was done as one guy's senior project, and I played the Ewan McGregor role in that show, which was one of my dream roles. So it was very exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's go to the
But long story short, so I auditioned. Go on. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. That was it. So you auditioned. You got in.
I got in, and then was part of this thing, and it's a very, very heavy workload, right? Out of the 14 guys, 8 of them took the year off just to be in the whiffs and do nothing else, just because it was so much rehearsal, so much touring. We traveled to over 30 countries in that year, in the world. Yeah. Each break, first we did a South America tour, then a something else tour, and then finally in the summer for 3 months you travel around the world. And you go from start in Vegas, go down to Australia, New Zealand, and to Japan, and to Southeast Asia. We even came to India because I was in the group. I was like, guys, we have to go to India. We stayed in my Nana Nani's house, which is 2 blocks away from your house in Delhi. And they all slept in various floors in that house. And we took them to Udaipur, where we sang for the Maharana of Udaipur. And that was exciting. And we were treated it was really fun. All those kids' minds were pleasant.
So you traveled. I mean, this took you to 30 different countries. That's incredible.
It was nuts, man. It was truly a surreal experience,
But how do you maintain vocal health?
Barely.
And
Scarcely.
that must be
That
out.
too. Yeah. That
So,
too
so
is
I'm
like
curious.
teenage, college seniors who are very excited to be going around the world and want to party. Vocal
Yeah,
health
but I
was
mean,
a
this
serious
is a
challenge.
pretty it's a pretty ruthless admission process, right? I mean, the idea of getting into a group like this is not. I mean, you have to deliver the goods. So I'm curious as to what was this audition process like? What did they expect of you? Not only as a musician but as a human. I mean, in the context for our listeners out there and for people who are watching, I mean, I do think that we should maybe even put a little playlist out sometime this week, Gaurav, of a cappella music. Right,
Oh,
that would
I'd
be really
love that,
interesting. I,
man.
I think
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool. I know Lucia, when we had her chat a month ago, she had put some great a cappella tunes in, and it's really incredible to see, this the voice has such a powerful. I mean, we as guitar players sometimes take it for granted that this is where it's at, right? So the
It's
control you
amazing,
need,
man.
yeah,
It's also beautiful because you can be like a bunch of guys just hanging out with nothing. You could be anywhere on the streets of Bogota and you could break out into song and it sounds
amazing.
like an orchestra, right? That's the thing I miss the most about being in a traveling choir, essentially, right? Where you could just sit and everybody is just singing obsessively all the time, right? Because we're all
Amazing.
like music nerds who love to sing. So everyone's, it's a
So what
constant
was
jam.
so what did it take to get in? What did they ask of you?
I mean, um, sort of regular choir audition things where you learn
Okay.
some parts, you have to sing in a 4 part or 6 part harmony, you learn a couple of parts, do that, come and do a solo, do some various
Okay.
other tests. But it's something you're used to because a cappella was a huge thing at Yale, man. It was like the fraternities of Yale. Frats were not a big thing, but a cappella rush there were like 16 a cappella groups when I was there. So
Wow.
it was like some serious hierarchy and some serious competition to get into these
Yeah,
groups. It was like out of
that's
a TV series, man. And I remember being so stressed when we would sit on the other side of auditions. It was one thing to be auditioning, that was very scary. But being on the other side, for 3 years, we auditioned other kids,
so how
freshmen
do you
coming in.
So how do you look? I mean, look at us today as musicians, right? And look at
Mm.
us, or look at that process when you were a kid. You were fearless, right? I mean, you must have
Hardly.
gone into, huh? That must have
Hardly.
taken. No, I'm not sort of offering a comparison. I mean that things in life are different, right? I mean, today
Sure.
we have Instagram, and everything you put out is this idea that you are, everything is an audition.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
some ways, the audition that you must have faced trying to get into this group, where already there are 16 groups vying to get into this one a cappella group, the competition must be incredible. I mean, it just must be. So do you just sort of put your blinders on and say that, look, I'll do my best, and if I lose, I lose, or do you go into a situation like that saying, I have to win?
Dude, for me, it was I have to win. This was my story. This was my origin story going to this school was that I'm going to be in the whiffs someday and I'm going to travel
Okay,
the world with them. So I don't think I contemplated not getting in. I was like,
okay,
mera to hone hi wala hai,
that
somehow.
was not an option.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Luckily,
Okay,
I didn't have to contend with that outcome, but yeah.
that's amazing. No, that's that's
Thank you,
that's
thank
some
you. It would
that's
have been
some
highly
serious.
character building had I had to deal with it, but yeah.
Well, either way, I mean,
Yeah,
well, then you would have well, I tried. But okay, so
exactly.
let's go beyond that. Now, this playlist that you've put together has some incredible music, and guys, the playlist is out now. Even though it's a Sunday soundtrack, we've decided to move for those who are and have been following the playlist. The idea of the playlist is to give both musicians and non-musicians an idea of what what are the tunes, what's the purpose of music, or what is it that drives people like us, right, to make music and to stay in the business of music and stay in. It's a harsh world out there. So how do you wake up in the music in the morning and say, well, today again, I love being a musician? And I think a lot of these playlists have reflected that. And this is great. I mean, you've got Jeff Buckley, you've got some Elvis, you've got the King's Singers, you've got Peter Sellers and Sophia, which I haven't heard yet, which I'm going to. Tom
Dude,
Misch.
that's from the Golden Oldies cassette. That was literally the first song on side A.
And that is the Peter Sellers, as in haha Peter Sellers.
Yeah. He plays in the song. He plays an Indian doctor. Okay, he's putting on an Indian voice. It's called. Sophia Loren is like, "Oh, doctor, I'm in trouble," and he's like, "Well, goodness gracious me," and he just does this whole complete Indian shtick, and it's so adorable and racist and very funny, and I
Well,
love it.
I mean, Peter Sellers is Peter Sellers, man. Hats off.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask before we segue into your journey back into India and where we are today. I thought maybe if you have a few minutes, you could play something for us.
Oh, like now?
Yeah. Or later.
Okay.
It's up to you. We can. Now would be great.
Okay, sure. I don't even know what to play. Okay, I have a song that I was thinking of earlier today. I'm not going to play an original song, if that's okay.
Everything is fair game.
All right. Actually, as I was searching for songs for this playlist, I was what are the sources of discovery, and one of the sources I realized was really soundtracks. Soundtracks was such a great source of music discovery growing up. Movie soundtracks, video game soundtracks, TV themes even. So one of the soundtracks I really loved was that of The Mask, the Jim Carrey movie. Amazing music in that film. And there was this one song. Here, let me see if I can get this guitar audible.
I mean, the only thing I remember from that was were these really incredible. Was there more than one or two big band arrangements or tunes in that? There was certainly one, right?
Yeah, there were quite a few. There was that Cuban Pete. There was Hey Pachuco.
Yeah.
There was, but they also had the soundtrack itself, right? So it wasn't necessarily songs they were singing, but the soundtrack, which was there was this one song called "This Business of Love." It was a super jazzy number. If I can get this thing on, that's what I'm going to sing for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Let's try it. Okay. It's just, am I in tune? Shit, hold on. You know what? Can we talk a bit more? I'll tune. Yeah, I can tune this up.
You can tune up while we chat. So we got back to India. So you had this whirlwind tour with this a cappella group. You got to sort of refine your vocal prowess and your knowledge, and actually, showcase your voice as an instrument, and then you come back to India.
Dude, amongst other things, like just to give you context of, we sang at the White House. We sang at the White House Christmas party as part of this group. Like,
is that when GW?
GW, yeah. It was when GW.
It
wasn't Obama years. It wasn't the cool White House, but it was still the White House. I was pretty sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it'll do. We sang from there to for orphanages in Africa. We were going across Kenya, it was pretty cool.
And I'm sure traveling with 14 people to 30 countries must have its challenges, right?
Oh, so many.
Well,
you hate each
that.
other by the end.
We'll come back to the Whiff and Puffs maybe at the end. I do want to talk about the transition into being an independent professional artist in India, right? And you came back in about 2006, 7.
No, actually, I came back in 2010 to go to business school. I was working in London for a few years in finance, came back in 2010 to go to business school, then worked in product management at Make My Trip for about 4 years, moved to Thailand with them, and then I finally quit the corporate world and I came back to India in 2015.
That's incredible. Yeah. So what was the reassurance you gave yourself? What was the thing you told yourself that made this transition happen? Because all of us have that, right? I mean, those of us who've made a jump into this world later on in our lives, there has to be this point at which you're like, this is it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's a scary decision to make, right? It's you really have to go against a lot of your, so far learned values, right? Like as we were discussing earlier, we grew up being very clearly instructed that creative industry, music, etc., is not something to do for a living, right? That's just not done. You focus on your, more conventional paths, professional paths, etc. But I think I got to a point where I realized that my day-to-day wasn't making sense. Like I was so far out of alignment with who I thought I was or who I thought I should be, that it just wasn't adding up. And it wasn't that I figured I was, going to switch to being a musician now full time, anything of that sort. Because I'd been to business school and I'd been to, the economics of it didn't make sense to me. And but there was this other dream I'd always had, which was not, oh, hello?
Yep.
Am I still there? Okay.
Yes.
You've got a spinning circle on you. But anyway.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
but
cool.
Your video has frozen for some reason.
Oh, no. So is yours for me.
Oops. Ah, there we are. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So I was saying there was another dream I'd always had as a kid, which was inspired by listening to Robin Williams on the soundtrack of Aladdin as the genie, was to be a voice actor. I was just excited because also growing up, you have to pick up different languages, pick up different accents. We constantly moved countries. You're always trying to fit in. So your accent is such a powerful thing, and that was just something that I'd always had a passion for because, you have an ear, you have a voice. Whoa, my iPad's falling.
There you are.
Hold on, technical difficulties.
That's
Let
okay.
me just bring this a bit closer. Cool. But yeah, as I was saying, there was always this dream to do voice acting or voiceover as a profession. And that was something that I figured I could explore. Is this working? Are we stable?
So this is the second time that the industries and enterprises of Disney have inspired you to take a leap of faith.
Hugely, man. Hugely. And it was just that. In that moment, it was this thing of, why am I doing this? Why am I in this corporate career, right? And so much of it was motivated by fear, I realized. So much of it was just like I felt this was something I had to do. And if I didn't do it, I would somehow lose out, miss out, not be enough. And it was when I realized that, I was like, oh man, I'm doing this out of fear. I'm not feeling aligned with myself. That's not the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. And I just felt like, why not take a chance? Why not dig down, try to pretend to feel like I'm a courageous person,
And so then, you went straight into voice acting and you went to Bombay. Is that how?
Yes. Moved to Bombay. And at the time, I was married at the time, and I was very grateful, very fortunate that my partner at the time was super supportive. She just was like, you do it, man. She really gave me, provided, a lot of guts that were needed to make that kind of leap.
Of course.
So that was huge. But straight moved to Bombay, just being like, let's give it 6 months. Or let's give it 9 months and see what happens. Just see what happens. Worst case, I'll go back to a job. I feel like try to get over some of that fear and say, you're qualified enough, it's fine, you'll be able to get a job should you need to. And it's been 6 years now. So far, so good. And I found this niche just by chance. You reach out to your networks, you try to take workshops, courses, etc. And I landed up in the offices of IPOM in Mumbai for an audition for a voiceover, just to do some voiceover. And it was for VH1 Hollywood Film Awards, some TV show. And I was doing these voiceovers, whatever I imagined a voiceover would sound like. And then the girl directing was like, hey, why don't you do it your own way? Just give it your own twist. What do you think? I was like, well, it's Hollywood Film Awards. Do you want it to be in an American accent? Could that be a thing? Like, yeah, sure. So I was like, VH1 Hollywood Film Awards, powered by whatever it was. And that then led to a thing where they called me back. They were like, can you do that consistently? Because they were, using actual Americans to do all these voiceovers. And so I was like, hey, make in India. And so then from that, I started becoming the voice of Comedy Central as well, which is a much more happy, overexcited American guy. Then, and so just fell into this niche of doing accented voices, which was just amazing for me because it was really the thing that I always used to try to belong, to try to fit in, became like not a superpower, but a thing.
So I have a question. I have a question. San says that's a great gig to get, and it is because I presume that there's just such a need for it across the board, right? I mean, it's not just ads, it's radio, it's film, and now
Audiobooks, yeah, dubbing.
OTT, right? I mean,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Amazon, Netflix. This is so. How do you train yourself for this, right? How do you actually prepare? Is there a science to it? Do you have you can't. I presume it's not just listening to something and doing it. I mean, it's like learning vocabulary, right? When you learn
Yeah, yeah,
jazz or
yeah.
learn something else. So how do you go about this? And the reason I'm asking is, sorry, I'm going to interject before I
Please.
even let you answer. And that is that I was watching this incredible interview with the cast of The Crown, which, guys, if you haven't seen on Netflix, you really should. It's incredible. And, they sort of really got this aristocratic English accent down pat.
Yeah, yeah,
And it wasn't just a science, but there were tricks of the trade which allowed you to speak like it, right? If you wanted to say yes, you didn't say yes, you said ears, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
did you work that out for different accents as well?
For sure, man. For sure. In fact, when I first went to Yale, I think I was so scared and nervous of being at this place that I just put on a British accent for like the first 6 months. I just spoke like what I imagined a British person would sound like. So it was definitely, it's ridiculous. And then of course it just evolved into an American accent.
Sure.
But for this American accent, I had an archetype in my mind. Because it's
And
one
what
thing
was
to say
that?
a few phrases. That was my first boss from my work in New York and London. This lovely American guy, Midwestern guy. And I would just hear his voice in my head when I would be analyzing a script. Like, how would John say it? And then I'd have him sort of there to say it in my head, and then I could
That's
do it.
amazing.
And
What a story.
over time,
yeah.
you get the hang of it. Over time, it becomes much more natural. And there's so many aspects to voicing, right? So much of it is also being able to it's about communicating. It's not just the sound of your voice, right? It's all the subtleties and nuances that come through. And that's something you, of course, through using your ear, through understanding what's working in the market, etc. But also dealing with people when there are demands placed on you, to be able to give options, to be able to give variations, to be able to understand what a certain inflection implies, what emotion will that elicit from the listener.
And is that a conversation that's easy to have? Because I'd imagine, let's say you were to do an ad with a southern, an accent from the Midwest versus something from New York. It's not just the script would have to change a bit, right? I mean, you have to do all that. Now, since you're bringing that authenticity to it, do you get to have an input into changing scripts when this is, or can you actually do that? Do you think, is that an easy thing to do?
It totally depends on whom you're working with, who the director is, etc. But definitely there's room for that. I've in many cases found room to say, hey, I don't think this would quite flow this way. Can we do this? Can we modify?
Okay.
Been lucky enough to work with really kind, lovely people who appreciate that. So that's been good. But it's also very funny, man, because sometimes I remember an experience where a guy was like, "Haan, wo karna apne wo accent mein kar le, apne accent mein." I said, "Which accent? You want a British accent? You want an American accent? What do you want?" And those are just umbrella accents, right? Within those, of course, there's so many other options. And he was like, "Wohi wala." That. So it's also, you have to, in our market, in the Indian market, that nuance isn't necessarily so important, to be delivering this accent versus that. Yeah. But what is it?
No, there's a question here. Does imitating American voices include
Kiss. I have no idea what that means, Ehsan.
I think there's something that has to be typed out.
Typo action.
No, but
we'll wait for the full question.
This is really cool. So this niche that you've got now, is this a significant part of your work these days? How much time do you get to record, to create? You're very active on that front. But I'd imagine that this is what's paying the bills.
Absolutely.
To a extent, right? Yeah.
That was the idea, that can I figure some kind of career that uses my voice, that uses this passion, this skill, that makes sense in terms of the time put in and the return on that investment, and that's one thing that fortunately is good with voiceover, but it really varies, man. I do a lot of also finding my Indian accent, my neutral Indian accent voice took some time.
Interesting.
Even that, it wasn't necessarily, though I was anyway a confused child, right? You don't know who you are, where you're from, what you're supposed to sound like. You always sound like whomever you're with, right? Because you're trying to fit in, whatever. So even finding, when I listened to the very first voiceover I did, something for ICICI Bank, something, sounds so terrible, like this bizarre put on thing of, what I imagined a voiceover should be. So that took some time figuring out what this persona is. Now, what did Ehsan say?
No, yeah, but there is a question that actually links exactly to that, and is that does imitating American voices include mispronouncing Hindi words like Americans do, or does your natural pronunciation of Hindi come in? That's a
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point, right? Like, what is actually needed by the market? So initially, I did do this thing of sounding like an American, completely butchering the Hindi sponsor names or whatever. And I'm like, Amul, powered by Amul, or some shit like that. So it was, and I cracked myself up doing that. But then I realized actually part of what I bring to the table is that I can handle both, right? To a reasonable extent, right? So then when I can actually do the sponsors in a legitimate, with correct Hindi pronunciation and so on. So now I've come to a point where I do that context switch, where when I'm saying Hindi brands, whatever, I do say it in not like a full-on, whatever, Desi Hindi, but like in slightly better than a foreigner would pronounce it.
That's incredible. I mean, good luck, to you and having found this niche and to actually making it work and, giving you the opportunity to do the kind of things that you want. I think your the stuff that you've been producing over the last year has been incredible. It's so diverse. The quality of arrangements are incredible.
Thank you, man.
I think that's incredible that you can have. I mean, for many of us, the idea to create also comes from the idea to be financially independent to create, and however you find that way to have it is incredible. And there isn't a judgment to it. I mean, I became a musician in an environment where, on the one side, people said, well, you can't be a musician because it's not viable. I mean, I don't mean people close to me, but that was the environment of
absolutely.
Right? And on the other hand, you're not a musician unless you're completely a musician. So you live in both these worlds where, they don't talk to each other. So you've got to find your own path. And I think you have, and I really respect that. And especially after having a career in something else. The question is, what is Groovy Butter? What do you envision your music to be? How do you plan to become an independent artist in this market? I hope that's an unfair market. I mean, I just want to know what your thought process is, vision.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it has been a journey, and it has been, you raised the point of, you're not a musician until you're completely a musician. And that was something I shied away from a lot. I was like, no. There was a part of me that was kind of embarrassed, to commit to it, because I was like, oh, then how will I see myself? Right? If that's my identity, what of all the other things, the storylines that I was on, the other parts that, I was on, and the peer groups, that I developed in those parts, what does it mean to then be on this part? So somewhere voiceover in my head was something that was safer, that made a little more sense. So I was like, no, I'm a voice artist and I do music for fun. I love to sing. I love to play. Slowly been getting into songwriting and composing. In fact, funnily enough, with Comedy Central over the past 6 years, I've done over 10, 11 songs for them. And they've been a cappella songs, they've had mouth trumpeting, they've been theme songs for the channel, etc., which gave me a great place to cut my teeth, just doing that on the side. And I think it was really this year where I got to the point, and Groovy Butter, that name came up about 2-3 years ago, where I was just trying to, it was just the kind of music I like to make, right? I like a bit of a groove. I like to be smooth and have harmonies and, have that sort of jazzy vibe going. And somehow Groovy Butter just encapsulated it. Okay. So that's where the name came from. But I was still at a bit of a loss as to, well, what am I just doing covers? Am I just going to be, doing songs that I like and having people? And initially, it was just so much about validation. The journey was just about, look at me, listen to me, make me feel good, that I sound good, etc., etc. And then it took some time to overcome that insecurity to whatever extent and be like, well, there's something I want to say with this music, right? There's some purpose to this, those moments where I would feel the need to express, where I'd feel something and I would feel the need to put it into song. Um, and that sort of formulated over the past couple of years. The first song I think I wrote was a song called Fatter, which was born out of being just really sad at getting fat. And I was like, every day you're getting fatter, no matter what you do, you know, and it was kind of a depressing song with sort of some funny bits. And I think somebody mentioned I should play it, and I'm happy to do that. But I think that sort of got at the heart of what I was trying to communicate, right? Like actually talk about real feelings, something that people can relate to. And make sense out of the world around them. You know, like this year has been, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I just had to interject. For those of you who haven't seen Gaurav's latest stuff, it's incredible. And I think it's therapeutic for any artist. There was a tune which he wrote, I think 2 weeks ago, which is that it's just something on the lines of, if you get online and you think you do something well, you'll always find someone else who does something better, right?
Yeah,
no matter
yeah,
what
yeah.
it is. And I thought that was so honest, right? And it was just that, well, you don't have to give up. You just got another day. I thought that message was so constructive. So,
Oh, thank you,
yeah,
man.
I mean, I watched it and I felt better about myself, you know, and I mean,
I'm
the
so
idea isn't to
glad.
feel better. It's that it's a perspective. And I think sometimes as artists, we do need to be able to talk about these things, which I think you're doing really well.
Thank
You're
you, man.
putting a little framework around some of the things that I think maybe many of us think about and aren't able to express. This whole world of Instagram, the whole world of Facebook and Spotify and being heard and all it's hyper competitive. All the feelings we felt, you know, rubbing elbows in smaller cities and in scenes, you know, in New York or in New Delhi or Bombay, and is exacerbated by this world.
It's
So
amplified to the
yeah, no, and
next level.
it's not a bad
Yeah.
thing. It's amazing. Competition's great, but how do you put it in perspective so you keep learning? That's the big question.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think that's what you've done really well this year. I've seen that transition happen in your work. You know,
Thank
so
you,
I'm
man.
all for this, and I think the more that we get exposed to stuff like this, the better we are for it. So having
Thank
said
you,
that,
man. And it's,
I had to add that because it was really important to us and to me personally. But I do want people to hear you sing and play. So I think we should do that.
for sure. Happy to. Man, now that you mentioned that song, I should have prepared that's on the
Go for
guitar,
it.
really, not on this. No, that's too much. I'm set up with this instrument. I'm going to play something on this. Okay. I'll just it'll be too complicated to unhook myself. How can I sing for you? Okay. Actually, I could
By
sing.
the way, I'm sure many of us want to
Huh.
know how did you figure out how did you figure out how to get a sound card through to Instagram Live?
Oh, dude, it was actually thanks to Clubhouse because you know Clubhouse,
Yeah, I
right?
know
The app
Clubhouse. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Clubhouse. So and that actually inspired so many of these songs. That song "Better Than You," like anything you can do, someone on the internet can do it better than you. It was on Clubhouse. I went and I found all these voice actors doing accents, impressions,
Can
so
you
nuanced, so
can you
detailed.
look? You've got to sing that a cappella. Forget the arrangement. Can you just get? People are curious. I'm curious again. Just sing it, please.
Okay. Try to hold this now on top of this. Let me see if I can recall what are the chords to that. Dude, give me a second.
Is that your guitar-lele?
That's the guitar lady, exactly.
Nothing like a good guitar-lele.
Okay, I'm not gonna plug it in, but let me see. What was it?
Okay, so if you're not plugging it in, you may want to. That's fine.
I'll plug it in. Hold on. This is very awkward. Swapping.
That's all right.
Too many instruments, man. Too many instruments. It's a big problem. That was another thing. Simplification has been such a huge component of actually getting stuff done, you know?
Right.
Half the time. All right, here we go. Can you hear this?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. So it goes, I haven't played this in a few weeks. Anything you can do, someone on the internet can do it better than you. Better than you. Just go online and you will find all the amazing people who are better than you. Now I know it sucks, but once you accept it, you can get better. Better than you were yesterday. That's the song.
That's such a.
Thank you.
That's so wonderful. That's just. Come on, guys. Whoever's out there, that's a really big.
Thank you, man. Thank you for appreciating it. And it really came from this place of I was feeling a bit low, and I was like, man, sab itne achhe hain. These people are so damn good. How do I make sense? How do I keep going on, right? What do I do? And I was like, well, it's all this cliched stuff of you have to fall in love with the process, right? You hear it over and over.
Yes.
You have to love the process. It's not about the outcome. The outcome is great, but you got to love the process, and you're in competition, not with other people, but with yourself. It's so cliche, but it's,
Yeah,
I remember
it is.
men, yeah,
No,
but it's, and it helped because writing that song and the process of putting it to music and putting it to a melody that, was in touch with that emotion helped me deal with it. So over the next week, when I had that thought, my own song came back to me, and I was like, yeah, just, you just got to do what you can do, so you can be better than you were yesterday.
I think
What
you've
else?
found a second niche in helping us as musicians articulate some difficult thoughts. And I hope you just keep this going, man. That's really cool.
Thank you, man. It's helped give me a sense of meaning as well, so that's been nice.
I wanna just touch a little bit about on this playlist, guys. So if it's live. I think the Apple Music link isn't live yet, but on Spotify and on YouTube it's up. And I wish I could show it to you, but it's really diverse. I mean, we've got some a cappella in here, the King Singers, which was a great tune. Some Billie Holiday, some Elvis, some Jeff Buckley, some Chet Baker, which it's really, really great. I mean, you've got some really meaningful tunes. Now, do any of these songs sort of go way back to your early childhood? I know you mentioned
A
one
lot
of
of
these
them.
did, right? There was the Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
But is there other stuff that you still gives you goosebumps? Let me put it that
For
way.
sure, man. For sure. In fact, the Peter Sellers one is probably like way back when. It is the first song I listened to on my Walkman as a kid. So yeah, for sure. But I think like songs like Billie Holiday, I heard in high school, and just so serendipitously, right? I didn't have any reason to discover her music, but this one guy who was, so I don't know if you know this, but I was an Elvis impersonator in high school. I was obsessed with Elvis. He was my
Right.
first love. I had all
Who
his
doesn't love
CDs.
Elvis?
Who doesn't love Elvis, right? But to the extent where I modeled my singing after him. And at one point in high school in Bangkok, I went up on stage. My drama teacher found me a gold jacket, and they arranged a whole band, and I sang Elvis songs. And I was so nervous, I closed my eyes and sang Jailhouse Rock. It was such a juxtaposition of like this, these very sort of confident rock and roll songs and being so scared. But what was I saying? I was saying, yeah, so Elvis definitely goes way back for me. But also there was this guy who played piano in that band. And he gave me this cassette, which was Tony Bennett and Bill Evans on holiday. So Tony Bennett and Bill Evans just
Really?
solo piano and voice singing a ton of Billie Holiday songs.
Tony Bennett and the Bill Evans.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And it was an incredible album because it wasn't like a backing, right? It was like that Bill Evans is alive every moment that he plays, right? Every note he plays, he doesn't play the same thing ever. And it was him with Tony Bennett just juxtaposing vocals versus piano so beautifully. And every track on that album is amazing. And I picked this one, Me, Myself, and I, which makes me very, very happy because it's also very cute. Like I love cute songs, man. I love songs that make me smile, that are lyrically clever or funny. They really, yeah. So definitely this one, this Me, Myself, and I, is one that goes way back. And a lot of them also from my days in at Yale also, like the Jeff Buckley, Martin Sexton. These are artists I discovered because of my a cappella groups.
Yeah.
These were people I didn't know about otherwise. But yeah, like this
You know,
song 13 Step Boogie, so worth listening to. It's got so much energy. Like I was just listening to it earlier today. Just makes me dance, man. I can't help it, listening to it. But go on.
I said we'd come back to the whiff and puffs, and I'm going to hold true to it. So the question
Please.
I have, and it's been in my mind, is that how much in your repertoire, let's say you were in these 30 countries you travel around, you must have had a fixed set list, or did it change?
Pretty
That's
fixed.
that's
You
question one.
work
It's
on
pretty
it.
fixed. Okay. And was there a strong improvisation element in this set list? Was there did it cover jazz, pop, classics? What was the kind of breakdown of these tunes?
So there was not a huge improv component. It was like you're a well-oiled machine. I
Okay.
think in that year we must have sung over 200 concerts, which is an absurd number for 1 year. Right?
Wow.
Like even during school days, which is why 8 people took the year off to do this.
Wow.
But yeah, you were just a machine, and you had some improv in that. So I used to sing this tune, and you even had assigned tunes. It was a big deal if you were singing someone else's tune, like, oh, tonight Gaurav's going to sing this guy's tune,
Right.
and that would be a thing. But my tune was Stepping Out with My Baby. And I had a little scat thing. Nobody else in the group scatted, but I love scat. So I had this whole scat section in the middle, and it was quite a funny thing. So that was my little
That's
improv bit, but yeah, it was.
that's incredible. Well, maybe we should add that tonight to
Yeah, it
your.
just occurred to me. I should
We
add
should
that to
add
the
something from the
playlist.
Whiff and Poofs to your playlist if we can, right? I mean, I think there must be
Yeah,
stuff on Spotify.
for sure,
Um,
for sure.
so as we draw closer to the end of this conversation, unfortunately, I do
Time
want
has flown, man.
time at home, but this has been really special. I think we've been able to talk about um, your journey in a way in which I think it reflects with many of us. And that I think is the whole point of conversations like this, as I said in the beginning, is that there's no one right path to becoming anything, specifically a musician, right? You can um, you can become a musician the day you decide you're a musician. And I think the last few months, and especially the last 6 months of the stuff that you've been putting out, have demonstrated that more than anything. And it's inspiring to me.
Yeah,
And I hope
thank
you
you,
keep this
man.
going. So, what I want to
Thank you
end
so
with
much, man.
is, would you like to play something before we head out?
Could do. What should
Yeah.
I play? I don't know. Should I play one of these other self-help jingles as I'm now?
No,
So
no,
I'm
give
trying to
us.
pick a hashtag. Can you help me with this? I'm thinking either
Let's
self-help
outsource.
jingle
Look, let's outsource our
or
hashtag.
musical. Okay,
Guys,
huh. So
give Gaurav a something to sing about, something that he could pick a tune, and I don't know.
no, but I was saying for these tunes that I'm making, which are like therapy tunes or things to help you deal with your feelings. So initially it was real feelings. Then I made it musical therapy. And now the third option is self-help jingles. I don't know
So
which one works best. Oh, I could play fatter. I could totally play
let's do
fatter.
fatter.
Somebody
Let's do
has said
fatter.
fatter. I could totally sing that. Let me change instruments once more. Slightly depressing song, huh? And I haven't sung it in a very long time, but I do love it.
Oh, you're I don't know that.
What?
You're left-handed.
No, I'm not.
Or maybe that's
This
the.
is it's a mirror
Oh, it's the mirror.
effect, I
Oh,
think,
okay,
happening.
okay.
Audible?
Yeah, but I think your. What if you were to unplug uh, your vocal mic so we could just get the phone mic getting both your voice and the guitar? It's a little compressed. It's okay. Just go for it.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
just go for it.
What should I turn down? I can
Are
turn
you
down the mic.
okay? Can you turn up
Is
your
the mic
guitar
too
a
loud?
bit?
Yeah, I can. I can do whatever you need.
Oh, you plugged in through a sound. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, better?
Yeah, yeah.
Check, check, check. Voice okay? Every day you're getting fatter. know no matter what you do. And every month it's getting colder, and so you hold her just because. With every love, your heart gets older, and it loses the ability to feel like it did when you were young. So why get hung up on the details? You're getting fatter. Fat, 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 fatter. Fatter, da, 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 da. Hold on, I'm gonna take my earphones out because it's too much. With every step, your journey gets longer. You think you're stronger, and maybe it's true. But every win turns out to be fleeting. No wonder you're deleting your memories. With every year, your bones get weaker. The future looks bleaker compared to yesterday. Like it did when you were young. Yesterday. But why get hung up on the details? You're getting fatter. Fat, 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 fatter. Now every day I go to the gym and I have a little swim, but it doesn't really matter cause I just keep getting fatter. I do my Pilates and I hang out with the hotties. I keep trying to get thinner, but I'm bitter, so I litter the world with the candy wrappers of my dreams. And then suddenly your life seems better. It's like you found a brand new favorite sweater to keep you from the cold, to save from getting old. Life seems on the up, but it won't last much longer till you find you're on that same old train. Pass me some of that gravy. Because you just keep getting fatter. Fat, 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 fatter. Why you gotta be so fat? You don't even know where thin is at. Fatter. That's a song.
All right. Woo-hoo. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
That was great. That was great. Well, guys, if you want more of that, make sure you check out Groovy Butter, which is Gaurav Sajjanhar, on Instagram and on Facebook, mostly on Instagram and sometimes on YouTube.
Oh, Anne's in the audience. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Anne. And hi, Meera. There she is. She's also
Hey,
been
Meera. Oh, love Keys. Please listen to Meera's Keys.
Yes,
amazing,
it's an
amazing
incredible
track.
tune. So before we wrap up, thank you for being on our little podcast, or well,
My
a little
pleasure,
chat.
man.
For our audience out there, I do want to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the next week. Of course, we are launching our Music Foundation certificate course, which is an incredible opportunity to learn music in a really exciting way, and I hope you can check it out. The links are in our bio up on Instagram, so you can click it while you're checking out the playlist and check it out. On the 10th of August, we have a very, very special conversation and a playlist put together by Ron Carter, who is one of the I would say, last living legends of really the jazz idiom. And he's an incredible guy. He's contributed to some of the masterpieces of this genre. So if you're free and available, please do check it out. We'll post the link soon. And we're really hoping to get a little insight into what can we learn from this? What can we learn from jazz? What can we learn from Ron? How do we get excited about music? How does a musician stay relevant over 60 years? Well, almost 60 years.
Wow.
So if you're around, please do tune in, and that's on the 10th of August. Tonight was really wonderful. Thank you for playing all that incredible music for us. And
Cheers, man.
yeah, thank
It
you.
was so good catching up with you, man. It was such a
Yeah,
pleasure. Like in
yeah,
this very sort of public context, but it was so beautiful.
and we'll see you in Goa at some point soon too, right?
Soon, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I just
yeah.
wanted to say, by the way, I've not been looking at the chat. I've just been seeing it pass by. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone watching and listening and for all your
Yes.
sweet words. Thank you, Amaraya. Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Mena. Thank you, Meera. Thank you, Inyan. It's been so lovely. Thank you. Thank you for listening and for your
Thank you,
support.
Budnix, and of course, Anne and Ehsan.
And
Thank you
Ehsan,
guys
yeah.
for all the
And I
comments,
gave you a
questions.
shout out in my journey to become a voice artist and how you were instrumental in giving me the guts to do it. So you weren't here, but it happened.
It did. Okay, guys, have a great night. Enjoy the weekend and check out this playlist. And we will see you with Ron next week. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.